Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley. Today we are going into prayer boards, how to make a prayer board, and how prayer boards can seriously revolutionize having faith in what God can do. We're also going to go into the difference between prayer boards and vision boards and how prayer really does work. Before we get into it, I have got to say, I cannot believe that 800 of y'all have pre-ordered my new book, The Joy of the In-Between. If you are struggling to trust God in a waiting season and you just don't even know how to have patience and wait on God, I want to encourage you to get the first 30 devos of this book, also a free bonus Bible study series when you pre-order my new book, and you just fill out this form in the description below and I will send it to you literally today. And Audible orders count as well. Let's get into the difference between prayer boards and vision boards. Vision boards have a lot to do with manifesting. Now, manifesting is basically when you believe in something enough that it actually happens. And it is often based out of selfish desire. Here's the truth about manifestation. I would be foolish to tell you that it didn't work, that manifestation was just this taboo idea that never actually worked. It actually does work because there is some truth to believing in something and having that thing actually come to pass. Your belief has so much power. The words you speak and the belief that you have so much power. And we know that because one, He created the universe by speaking it into existence. So we wouldn't even have the universe that we're living in right now if God didn't first speak it. So there's a principle of your words carrying a lot of power. Also, we know that Jesus, when He would perform miracles, when He would go and do these crazy things, when He would talk to the disciples about miracles happening, prayers being answered, He says, hey, I just need you to have the faith the size of a mustard seed. Hey, where is your faith? What has happened to your faith? Because of your faith has healed you, daughter. The amount of times He brings things back to faith is actually insane. And it is because God created a principle in the universe where faith in God and faith in what God can do can produce crazy outcomes and can produce crazy things happening. It can produce actually God moving in that thing. The enemy cannot create anything new. The enemy can only twist what already exists. He will take the principles that God created and he will use them, twist them to not glorify God, but to glorify self. And he will twist it to not accomplish God's dreams for your life, but to accomplish your fleshly desires for your life and to feed your flesh. This is not new. All the enemy ever does is twist things that God creates. We will hear this difference between self being glorified and God being glorified when we even hear people saying I manifested this. Me. Even when you look at these boards that people are creating in this space, it has a lot to do with feeding your fleshly desires and feeding things that are of the world. God says where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Don't store up your treasure here on earth where it's gonna end. All the dollars we make on this earth is going to go away. Every bit of worldly abundance is not going to really matter in the kingdom. What matters in the kingdom is glorifying God, is worshiping God, is loving God, and it's also loving our neighbor. So how is a prayer board different than a vision board, you might ask? Prayer boards are a place where you get to believe God has put in your heart to believe for. It is all things that are God-focused, not self-focused. It is you believing in everything God can do, not you believing in the things that you can do. We know that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We know that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can tell a mountain to move and it will move. When we talk about having faith, truly, it is because God, He gives us visions first. He gives us these desires on our hearts first. And I know that it's from God because none of our desires are the same. The fact that some people want to go on missions and some people want to be pastors and some people want to be worship leaders and some people want to start businesses and some people want to teach kids in elementary school. The fact that we all have different dreams and desires on our heart shows that there is a God who is behind each and every single one of our desires, and He has a plan for every single one of our lives, and He starts that plan with vision. He gives us vision for our lives. He is the one who is the source of our goals and our vision. When we partner with God and we allow Him to give us vision and we ask for vision and then we believe that God is going to do it, these things actually happen. And then God gets the glory. Versus how manifesting and vision boards work, where it's I'm going to seek a vision from myself. I'm going to look inward to what I want and then I'm going to make it happen and then I'm going to get the glory. The prayer board is, God, you give me vision. God, I'm going to believe that the vision is going to come to pass in your perfect timing and in your way. And then then God, you're gonna get all the glory when it happens. An example of this in scripture is when Abraham was called out of Ur, a place that he had built his home in. Like, they had a space in Ur, they knew people in Ur, and then God looks at Abraham and he says, Abraham, I'm gonna call you to go to this foreign land. I'm gonna call you to go to a place that you don't even know about right now. So then Abraham follows God, and then God literally moves through Abraham to birth an entire nation. Abraham was counted as righteous because of his faith. God told Abraham that he would be the father of a generation. And even though Abraham and his wife, Sarah, were both old and they were past the age of childbearing, they still believed, and it continually says in scripture that Abraham was counted as righteous because of his faith. Abraham believed God so much that when God told Abraham to eventually kill the son, the firstborn son that he had with Sarah, the miracle, the promise that happened, he eventually asked Abraham to give it up and to kill Isaac, who was the son that Sarah and Abraham eventually had, even in their old age. Abraham believed God so much in the vision that God gave him that there was going to be an entire generation and descendants from him that he figured that Isaac would be raised from the dead after he killed him. Like, that's how much faith Abraham had in the vision and in what God could do, and that God was not a liar. He was going to keep every promise that he said. We also see this with Noah. Noah got a vision from God and got a word from God to build an ark because there was gonna be a flood coming. Noah built the ark before the flood came. Faith and vision prompts us to take action. When God gives you a vision, when he gave Abraham the vision of the descendants and the vision of leaving Ur, guess what Abraham did? He left. It prompted him to take action. When Noah was told about having to build the ark, prompted him to build the dang ark. You're not just gonna get vision from God and goals from God and dreams from God and then not have them prompt you to take action. Because every vision that you get, and this is the power of vision boards as well, vision, it alters our attitude, and then when our attitude is altered, that alters the steps that we take. It makes us take action. You having a positive attitude about something will actually prompt you to take action about that thing, and then that action produces results. So when you get vision from God, that prompts you to have an attitude of faith, believing God is going to do this thing, and that faith that you have prompts you to take action. Manifesting is saying, I don't need God. I don't need God to give me dreams. I don't need God to help me in my life. I actually can do this all myself. I'm going to feed my fleshly desires and I'm going to manifest them, and then I'm going to get all the glory when they come. But with prayer boards, it is us staking our belief on what God has already said and what God is going to do. And it's us saying, I am believing God is going to do this thing, and I'm going to commit to moving on this thing that God has told me to move on. So how do you start your prayer board? Step number one to starting a prayer board, surrender. This is where it's different than the vision boards, because vision boards, you're looking into yourself immediately. You're going, okay, how do I make my dream life? With prayer boards, you're not going to be looking to yourself to give you guidance. You're going to surrender it all to the Lord. You're going to surrender it all to the feet of Jesus. You're going to say, God, I give you every single dream and desire that I have had. God, I ask that you would take it and that you would lead me on the life that you have for me. Hand it over to the Lord. Hand over every dream, hand over every desire. This is super scary for some of you because you think God is going to let you down. He's not going to let you down. Give it to him. Give him every hope. Give him every dream. Lay it at the altar. Do not cling to these things anymore out of your own strength. This is really important so that it means that we don't go into this process out of anything that is of the flesh, but we ask God to take the reins on our lives. A really good friend explained it to me like this. She said, when you go like this and when you take control of your life, God goes like this. He's like, girl, I'm gonna let you just like have it. And every time I do this, every time that I cling to control, God is like, okay, girl, like I'm just gonna let you figure that out and I'm not gonna move. And then I end up getting so frustrated because like it's not working out my way. But then when we go like this, we go, okay, God, take over. God goes like this. Finally, I am so glad finally surrendered. So hand everything over to the Lord. This is your very first step. Step number two, pray and ask God for vision. How do you get vision? You might ask, Ashley, what do you mean this vision? You're talking about all these visions from God. You get to ask for it. Prophetic vision comes from God. Ask God to show you what he wants for your life in 2024 or whatever year you're watching this in the future. I also encourage you guys to begin the year with a fast. I begin every single single year with a Daniel fast, and it is so powerful what happens with prayer and fasting. You don't just fast to like lose weight or go on a diet. You fast and you pray to seek God's will, to get closer to God, hear from God, and to ultimately have Him take the reins on your year. With this past year, I remember in January, I wrote all these goals down and I was like asking God for vision. I was writing down goals, but then it wasn't until middle of February, after I fasted and I prayed, that God actually told me what to focus on for the entire year. And because He told me to focus on this thing, it wasn't top of mind in January, but after I fasted and prayed, He literally spoke it like so many times. I cannot wait to tell you guys about this in a future video, but it is so crazy what God did this year. It just shows the power of prayer and fasting. Like, He will confirm the vision that He's giving you. Like, I mean, ask Him to confirm. Be like Gideon in the fleece. Be like, all right, God, I'm gonna leave this fleece out. Say, God, I'm asking for sign. This is what I feel you're leading me to do this year, but would you give me sign? Would you give me a confirmation? Would you please just like let me know for sure if this is what you want me to move on? And He is so gracious. He will actually fulfill that because He's so kind and He wants you to have confidence to do the things that He has planned in advance for you to do. Step number 3, believe. After you've surrendered and after you've prayed and asked God for vision, you are gonna get vision, my friend, because God is faithful. Whenever you ask Him for wisdom or vision, and whenever you pray, like, God moves, God answers. And so when He gives you vision and when it's bigger than anything you would ever ask, think, or imagine, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna believe. And guess what? If it's bigger than anything that you could ever accomplish by yourself, then that is also proof that it's perhaps God. Because God is not going to call you to step out and do something that you could do on your own. He's gonna call you to do something that you can do only with Him, only partnering with the Lord. And that means that He gets the glory. Because if He's only gonna call you to do things that you can do, you get glory, sis. But it also, you might be a bro. I don't want to exclude the men here. But you might get vision about things that feel really, really big and really, really out of reach. And you go, God, why would you call me to that? And He's gonna go, listen, I'm the one that's gonna move through you to make that happen. I'm gonna be the one that you partner with to make that happen because I am the God of the universe. I am Jehovah Jireh. I am bigger than anything. If I'm the one that gives you the dream, I will be the one to fulfill it. We know this with Moses. When he was called to lead his people out of slavery, he had zero confidence. God speaking to him through the burning bush saying all this stuff about him, you know, leading and speaking. And he goes, paraphrase, he says, what do you mean I'm going to lead your people, God, out of slavery? But God is like, why are you even doubting? God, He gives you the vision and then He wants to be the one who gets the glory when it happens. You get to thank God in advance for encouraging you to step into acting. It sounds crazy, but you get to thank Him in advance because He is going to fulfill it. You get to thank God in advance for giving you the dream to write a book. Yes, it sounds crazy. Yes, maybe you have no experience writing, but you get to thank Him in advance that it's going to happen because He spoke it and He said it to you. You get to thank Him in advance for the husband. You get to thank Him in advance for being on the worship team. Like, my job right now is to boost your faith and to say, you know what? All the disappointment that came your way, it is not going to impact you and cloud your faith for the next year because we serve a God of miracles. We serve a God who can do the impossible. With man, this is impossible. With God, this is possible. This year, you're going to have faith that God can do the miraculous. Faith is seeing something to be true before it is true. With prayer boards, you are able to see and focus around what you're praying about, that it will actually come to pass. Step number 4 is make your goals. After I've done all of these steps, it is now time to make the goals and to write the visions that God has given me. It says in Habakkuk that we are to write the vision, we are to make it plain. So what I will do is I will write out my 1 to 8 goals. I never do more than 8 goals because more than that and I'm not accomplishing anything. This is actually when I'd really recommend you guys getting this book. It's called a Cultivate What Matters journal and I do it every single year. I'm going to link it in the description for you guys, but it helps you just do exactly what I was telling you guys to do, to dream and vision with God, to see the areas in your life that need to be cultivated more, to just help you set goals in your life. It is so amazing. I also write down my yes and my no list. So I decide, okay, what am I going to say yes to and what am I going to say no to? I actually created a whole video on goal setting that you guys can check out. I also write down the relationships that I want to steward and cultivate in this year. I write down Bible verses that I want to cling to. I write down different prayers around different areas of my life. I also will print out pictures around those goals that I set for myself that I felt God was like, I want you to focus on these things. I'll just print out pictures to help me just see and pray around those things. It just helps me focus and go, okay, this is the direction that I'm going. I encourage you guys to take an entire afternoon to do this. Again, I want you to visualize and ask God to show you what He has for you you in different areas of your life. God wants to give you wisdom. God wants to give you vision. And then also you want to get like a bulletin board. I have one on my Amazon storefront. If you want to make it artsy, I know some of y'all are super artsy. I'm definitely not. So I just try to make this really focused and centered around the visions and the goals that God has given me. Step number 6 is to put action behind your goals. So action is always a direct result of your belief. If you do not believe that God can do it, you will not take action on that thing. And I know a lot of you guys just felt disappointment after disappointment in 2023, but I want you guys to start hoping again. I know that it might not have happened in this past year, but it will happen in the next year. You lose nothing by believing, you lose nothing by hoping. Having faith in what God can do is totally free. When God gave me all those prophetic words and that vision, it boosted my faith, and I want this to boost your faith. And here's the thing, God will call us to step out in faith before he provides. God gave me the vision and he called me to step out and build this team. I already started putting systems into place, but I didn't know who was going to fill those slots. I still had to go through interview after interview after interview, and I had to trust God every step of the way to give me discernment and wisdom about who to hire. And let me just also be honest, there were so many times that I lost hope this year. There were times this year when life just completely slapped me in the face. And there were times this year where I was tempted to just give up on all the dreams and the visions that God has given me, and to give up on believing that God could really work a miracle and move the mountains in my life. But God was so faithful to boost my faith when I had none. And I pray that this video boosts your faith if you have none. Prayer boards and all this, all it is a tool to boost your faith and to keep your faith going. For me, it's a tool to build my faith and build my faith in what God can do. Not me going to the universe and manifesting these things into existence, but me going to God and believing that with God, all things are possible. Now, faith without works is dead. Write down what you are practically going to do to make these things happen. Again, this has a bunch of different sheets on it where you can actually do this, but just write down, okay, what are the weekly habits that I need to do in faith so that this vision can happen? What do I need to do monthly? What do I need to do this month, this year, this season? Step number 7, we are finally making the prayer board. So I want you guys to get yourself a coffee, set aside a comfy afternoon, get your bulletin board together, get your photos together. You're going to make your prayer board. You're going to put your goals up. You're going to put your prayers up around each of these areas. I love how with the circle maker, it's really about just circling prayers and just going back to prayer request after prayer request and just like believing that God can do these things. This is your faith board, and this is how you are going to believe that God can do big things in your life this year, because he can. Alright guys, that is the end of this video. Comment this emoji if you made it to this point in the video. And remember to pre-order this book and get your free goodies today. It's gonna be an amazing year, and I can't wait to go into it with all of you guys. Make sure to subscribe as well. I love you guys.